All right, this next section is on dividing polynomials. We're going to use two types, long division and synthetic division. All right, just a review, dividing polynomials. Now it works just like everything else. It starts out as a fraction, right? It could also be written with a divide sign in between. Dividend divided by the divisor. It can also be written like this. The answer is called the quotient. So when we start writing the answer, it's going to be the quotient, the thing that's on top. And then the remainder, which is the guy at the bottom, right, the very last thing, written over that divisor. So this is the standard way of writing your answer right here, mostly this side. All right, steps to long division. Now, if you remember way back when in elementary school or whatnot, there was stuff that you learned like this, 35 divided by 2. And the process was to write the bottom number outside, the denominator, and then the big number in the bottom. And you said, okay, 2 goes into 3 one time, so you wrote that up top. 1 times 2 is 2, you write that below, and you subtract. So 3 minus 2 is 1. Bring down the 5 and you get 15. And then you start the whole process over again. 2 goes into 15 7 times. 7 times 2 is 14. You write that below, subtract. And then this guy right here is called the remainder. Now this process for dividing polynomials is the exact same steps. So you're going to write it with the divisor on the outside and the dividend on the inside. Now what I do is I make a little work area out here to the side for me so that I can do my calculations and I make less mistakes. Okay, the process is exactly the same except for now we have terms instead of values, but it's still something on the outside divided by something on the inside. And it's always the first term on the inside, and then we just divide it by the first term on the outside. It's always first divided by first. Okay, reducing that down, x squared divided by x, that's just x. That is what gets written up top. It is just like the 1 right here back in our regular example. Okay, our next step was to take the 1 and multiply it by the 2, write it below. So we're going to take the x, multiply it by the stuff on the outside. If you multiply that, that means distribute x squared minus 2x, and that gets written below. Okay, and then we subtract that stuff. Now subtracting, you've got to be careful because when you subtract, what it actually does is it changes the signs on both the things. So it's now x squared minus x squared. Okay, those cancel. They should cancel. This work that we did over here to the side, it sets it up so it will cancel. Then you've got negative 5x plus 2x. That's negative 3x. And then just like before, we brought down this next term, right, the 5. So we're going to bring down the next term, plus 6, and then you start the whole process over again. So this next one's going to be first term, which is negative 3x, divided by the first term on the outside. The x's cancel, so that's negative 3. That gets written up top. Now you take that and multiply it by the stuff on the outside. It's always the same process. You're still multiplying by the same thing every single time, which means you distribute negative 3x plus 6. Okay, that's going to go down below. And once you distribute that negative through, or sorry, you subtract, so that changes that to a plus and that to a minus. The negative 3x plus 3x cancels. They're supposed to cancel. If they don't cancel, then you did something wrong over here in your work area. And then you notice that 6 minus 6, those also cancel and become 0. This means there is no remainder. So your answer is x minus 3. That quotient, that thing at the top. So here's the steps kind of in words. Now this is one of those that if you practice, it clicks a little bit better. But it's always divide the first term on the inside by the first term on the outside. And then you write that answer above. And I'm going to say simplify right here. Because you're always dividing. So you're going to subtract powers or divide numbers. Then you multiply that, right, this thing that you wrote above, by the outside. That's the divisor. And you're going to distribute. It'll always be distribute. And then you write that below. Okay, that is this step right here. Subtract. Now this is the key part right here. Subtract. Don't forget to change signs. I'm even going to highlight that because that is the #1 mistake that students make. They forget to change those signs. So be very careful when you do these not to forget those signs. Okay, now you bring down the next term and you repeat the steps. If there's a remainder, and I'll show you an example with a remainder, you're going to write that remainder as this, the remainder over the divisor. This is the outside guy. And you add it on to the end of the answer. So again, the answer will be the quotient plus whatever the remainder is divided by the divisor. And you can remember this by that's the stuff on top. This is the stuff outside. All right, let's try this next one. Okay, divide this, so that goes on the inside. By x plus 2. Over here is going to be my work area. Okay, first term divided by first term. 8x cubed divided by x. That's going to be 8x squared. And that gets written up above. Okay, second step is to take that and distribute it through the outside. That is 8x cubed plus 16x squared. That gets written right below. Okay, and then we're going to subtract. Remember that subtract changes the signs on both of them. Those should cancel. Always, always, always those guys should cancel. So we end up with 3x squared minus 13x squared. Sorry, minus 16x squared is negative 13x squared plus 2x. Then we start the whole process over again. Okay, out here to the side, I'm going to take the first term, negative 13x squared, divide it by that first term on the outside. That's negative 13x. Okay, that gets written up above. Now we've got to multiply that by the divisor. That's negative 13x squared minus 26x. That gets written below. Okay, and then we're going to subtract. #1 step. This is where people make mistakes. Both things change, and then when we add them down, those cancel. They need to cancel. If they didn't cancel, you made a mistake somewhere. This becomes 28x. Okay, going to bring down that next term and start the whole process over again. First term is now 28x So 28x divided by the first term on the outside, that is 28. It's positive, so we'll go plus 28 up top. Okay, next step, multiply that 28 by the stuff on the outside. 28x plus 56, it's going to go down here below. Then we subtract, remembering that subtracting changes the signs on both. Those cancel, and you're left with negative 57. That is our remainder. Before we write the answer, I want to point something out. This plus 2 on the outside right here has no bearing or no effect on the problem except for at this point right here, right? That plus 2 doesn't matter except for when you distribute that through and when you write it up, when you write that below that purple stuff. Okay, so the answer is going to be the quotient 8x squared minus 13x plus 28. Then you're going to take the remainder and do plus negative 57 over that divisor, x plus 2. Now plus a negative, that's going to be 8x squared minus 13x plus 28 minus, and then you keep your fraction. And that's it. That's the whole process from start to finish. This work thing out here to the side is going to help you keep stuff separated, and then it's this rinse and repeat process. Divide, multiply or distribute, write it below, subtract, bring down the next term, rinse and repeat. Okay, let's try this one. What do you notice about this? Look, it's got a 2x cubed here and a 4x. So I'm going to start by writing that in standard form. Okay. Oh, lost my eraser. So 2x cubed plus 4x minus 1, and then 2x minus 2 on the outside. Here's my work area. I'm going to take the first thing on the inside, divide it by the first thing on the outside. Turns out that is x squared. Then I take the x squared, multiply it by the 2x minus 2. That is 2x cubed minus 2x squared. Oops, I forgot to write that guy at the top. X squared. So we've got 2x cubed minus 2x squared, and then we've got to subtract. Remembering that when you subtract, it changes the signs on both of them. Okay, those cancel, they're supposed to. And then I've got 4x squared plus, 4x plus 2x squared. Wait a minute, those are not like terms. I can't combine them together. What happens if you notice at the beginning, there is no x squared term. Right? That guy is missing right there. When that happens, you've got to put a place value in there so that everything lines up the way that you need it to. So instead of going right to 4x plus 1, I'm going to put in plus 0x squared. That is just a placeholder. All that does is it helps things line up so that when you actually add them together, it's going to make a little bit of sense. Okay, that's 2x squared. Bring down the next term and start the whole process over again.